Welcome to episode of Sittin Courtside. Today is Friday, February 21st. Real quick. I actually don't think he listens to the show. Point blank, I don't think the guy does.
Okay.
But on the off chance that he does, it is Friday, February 21st. I'd like to wish a very happy birthday to our mate, Dylan Madden.
Oh, okay. Happy birthday, Dylan.
Again, don't think he listens to the show, but in case he does.
Well, he definitely doesn't make picks in our chase for the belt, that's for sure.
So he at least gets that.
Yeah. All right, so we have an absolutely loaded podcast here because the committee did come out with the top 16, the first one of the year. So we're going to really focus on that and then give picks. So we're not going to do too much of a recap outside of the top 16. So if you're listening to this podcast and you did not see the committee come out with their top 16, pause it real quick, go check it out. But again, it did come out Saturday. That's my biggest complaint first is that it comes out on Saturday before
Yeah.
the weekend, which is always huge. But we are going to go through what we thought of the initial 16, what our like thoughts on it. There were snubs, who was ranked too high, who was ranked too low, and then we're going to go through what happened with those top 16 since then. It's been nearly a week almost now,
Yeah.
and then we'll give you some picks because it is an absolutely loaded weekend. So, all right, top 16 spots were revealed on before Saturday's game. So yes, after it was before Saturday's games, after the Friday games. Initial thoughts, though. Did you have anything that instantly popped out to you about
Yeah.
this top 16?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Why is Kansas on this list?
Yeah.
I'm not sure anyone on that committee watched basketball one
Uh-huh.
time this entire year.
Yep.
How
Uh-huh.
they ever thought it was fathomable to put them on this list, disgusting.
Yep.
Disgusting.
Yep.
Number two, and then I'll let you comment. They
Mhm.
have put a clear line in the sand that they are not fans of the Big East.
Yeah.
Not
1000%.
fans of the Big East.
Yeah.
And if that is true, this does not bode well for Creighton, UConn, Xavier.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the only Big East team that actually made it in the top 16 was St. John's, and they got the last of the 16
Literally
spots.
the last
Yeah.
spot, they're 22 and 4.
Uh-huh.
A team that I dubbed had a potential to make a run to the one seed. I was
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
apparently, because
Yeah.
I watch basketball. Apparently they
Yeah,
don't.
they do
So
not. Yeah. So my biggest shock, I'll go with that because you already mentioned Kansas. Let's just okay, if you're listening to this on Friday, you already know they've lost two games since these rankings come out. But before that, they had seven quad one and two wins, seven combined.
combined.
They had eight eight wins outside of the quad one and two. And they have so they're basically mediocre against every team that has a pulse in all of college basketball. I think Marquette, St. John's, Missouri, Michigan all had a better resume than them. And that was before they lost two games in a row. So that was my biggest shock. You mentioned it right off the top. And then my other thing was this will hurt because a lot of people that listen to this are fans of this team. I thought initially Purdue was too high.
Okay, I couldn't say it.
Yeah,
I couldn't say
yeah. And that's again just like Kansas before their two losses. They were 6-6 against the quad one going into this rankings. Houston is also 500 against quad ones, but they have a better record against a harder conference. And Iowa State is 6-4 against quad one. I don't know how they put Purdue coming off a loss to Michigan at that third best two seed. Just didn't make sense to me. Obviously, it played out the last week
Yeah,
that it doesn't really matter, but
absolutely.
those are the two things that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. There was one other thing. I don't call it a shock. It was just more interesting.
Yeah.
Kentucky was another
Uh,
one, which is partially why I'm like, I don't know if these people watch basketball or if they were just looked at the rankings and were like,
yeah.
oh, okay, that seems all right. And then let's just put some big names in there so that it gets some interest. Because, like, yes, Kentucky's done well, but the ranking made no sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if you even look at the rankings that then came out a day later, they're nowhere close to the top 16.
Mhm.
So the whole thing was a little bit weird, quite frankly.
What is since they started doing this a couple of years ago, what has never made sense to me is the committee that actually picks the bracket. They really like consider what you've done recently. But the
Yeah,
guys that do this, which is the same people, like the do the top 16, they consider your overall like record. So yes, Kentucky has the second most quad one wins. They're tied with like five other teams. So that makes sense on paper. They have eight quad one wins. They only have one loss outside quad one. I get it why you put them in, but their recent like form has not been good. if that was going for the bracket, they would consider that and they would drop them down. I don't know why they don't do it here. Like St. John's, recent form, they lost one game in the last month. They're the 16th. It just they don't like keep the same standard for both. It just doesn't make
100%.
sense
No,
to me.
that's what I'm saying. It makes no sense.
You know.
0 cents, sir.
All right, so this one I think will be fun because I had a few teams I thought about, but who is the biggest snub going into Saturday? Like
Yeah.
so, without any of the results, who was the biggest snub of the original 16?
So you kind of already trashed them a bit here, but I do think Houston
Okay.
at 8, that
Yeah.
made no sense to me.
Hmm.
And not so much because of not the things you just said, but because of who's in front of them.
Yeah.
So again, teams that I was a little surprised were in front of them: Texas A&M, Purdue,
Mhm.
odd. I can live with Tennessee. Florida, more
Yeah.
interesting now after the weekend.
Yeah.
It feels like it's going to be impossible for there not to be 3 SEC teams now to get
I
a 1
know.
seed with
I
the way
know,
they've set
right?
this up, which is
Hmm.
why I'm kind of like weird, because now Houston and Iowa State play each other and they essentially have nothing to gain because
Yeah.
they're right next to each other.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
that's a big game. Who cares? You've gained
Yeah.
nothing, right? So it felt weird more so, and maybe it's more so, I guess, the every conference not named the SEC, but Houston was one that just jumped out to me instantly. I'm just like, that seems weird.
Yeah.
Don't like that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's five of the top six are the SEC. So yeah, it's going to be very difficult to break
Yeah,
that. Seeing their record, their strength of schedule and records are always going to look very good on paper.
yeah.
I thought though another SEC team. So I'm kind of buying into what the committee's selling here. I thought Missouri was an absolute stub from the top 16.
Okay, that's fair.
And that was before they beat Alabama. We're going to see them on Saturday now. Like they're going to get ranked in the top 16. But going into Saturday, the first rankings last Saturday, they had no losses outside quad one. They had 5 quad one wins. Their worst loss of the entire season was at Texas, which is considered a quad one loss. They've beat Kansas, who was ranked. They beat at Florida, that's probably one of the best wins of this entire season. They beat Ole Miss and they beat at Mississippi State. I didn't know how they didn't get in there over teams like Kansas, obviously. St. John's, I do think deserves to be higher, but they have more quad one wins than St. John's. They
Yep.
have more quad one wins than Michigan. They have no worse losses than Michigan, Arizona, Texas Tech, St. John's. So I just did not understand how Missouri wasn't in the top 16, but they will be coming forward. So
What's actually more interesting, take out the week. I felt that Purdue should have been lower, Houston should
yeah,
have been higher. Arizona and Texas Tech, as much as we both love them, probably should have been lower.
yeah,
Michigan maybe shouldn't have been in it. Kansas shouldn't have been in it. Kentucky lower if you want to keep them in. And that
mhm,
kind of opens up potential spots to have a Michigan State, a Missouri,
yeah,
a Marquette. Like you could have
yeah,
shuffled them in
exactly.
somewhere or at
Yep.
least made it make sense. This was just, I can't explain it other than I don't think you watched any basketball until now.
Yep. They didn't have to go all in on just big name teams on the first one. All SEC, all big, like they didn't have to do that. Like they could have let it play out that way if that's really what they
Yeah.
wanted to do.
But
So,
even like Arizona, good team. Them
mhm.
as a 3 line. You were discussing them being a French 4 last week, and they
Uh-huh.
have them all the way up. Like that was even like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah, yeah, and that's before their Baylor when they lost this week. I said they didn't do anything to help themselves since then too. Like they have 8 losses already. When was the last time we saw a team at the beginning or the middle of February with 8 losses be a 3 seed? That's just not what happens in
I'm
this.
telling
So
you, I'm expecting pure chaos
yeah,
during the tournament. I saw Fox come out with their projected bracket tonight, aka
okay,
Thursday.
yeah,
There is not a single 1 seed I trust to beat the 8-9 matchup if they have to play them.
okay, yeah,
Not a single
yeah,
one. They potentially have Alabama Gonzaga playing each other
yeah.
in the second round.
Uh-huh. I saw one a few days ago, and I almost sent it to you because it's exactly what we talked about on the podcast. They had Creighton as the 8 seed in the
Yes,
same bracket as Duke, and then as the 4 seed was Arizona. I was like, that couldn't have been worse for what we were just talking about like a week ago.
there. I'm trying to remember what I saw. There was like legitimately, I think it was Duke had to play Creighton, and then the 7 seed was like Clemson, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
if I was Duke, I'd rather play Clemson.
Yeah.
And then it was like Alabama had to play Gonzaga, but the 7 seed was Louisville. I go, in what world, if you
Yeah.
are Alabama, would you rather play Gonzaga besides Louisville?
Yeah. No,
It was
not
like
at all.
like literally every matchup I'm looking at, I'm like, I would rather be the 2 seed.
Yeah.
One of them, I forget what it was, but I remember the 2 seed got to play Oregon instead of like UConn. I'm like, I'd rather play Oregon. I go,
Uh-huh.
this
Yeah.
is terrible. This is
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, I'd rather play the team with 8 quad 1 wins than the team that's won the national championship the
A
last
hundred
2 years.
times out of
So,
100, I don't even care. Like it
yeah,
was until I looked at it and I was literally like, there is not a single like it would not be the auto 1 seed to the Sweet 16. It'd be like, I have to think about this.
yeah, yeah. All right, so that's just or kind of giving our thoughts on the original 16. Obviously, a ton has happened since
Yeah.
then. When you come out on Saturday morning and all these big games, we have to go through a bit of a preview. It'll just be a preview of the top 16 and who they played, but we got to start with Auburn. Their 14th, yes, that's right, 14th quad 1 win of the
Yeah.
season. They have less losses than everybody. Both are quad 1 losses, so they're 14-2 in quad 1 games. They've won every other game. Have they pretty much clinched the number 1 overall seed for the rest of the season going into March Madness?
I think they probably have at this point. Also, I was hoping everyone remembered last week when you said they had 12 when you
No.
gave your Kansas stat there,
Yeah.
because Kansas had 8 total, one and
Hmm.
two.
Yeah.
Auburn has 12 before you just gave that update of just ones.
Yeah.
I think so, though. I
Yeah.
think I'll go back to whatever. I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. I thought Alabama had a chance. The fact that Alabama did lose twice, they lose to Auburn at home. Alabama was the only one I think that had a chance to maybe sneak in. I think Auburn at this point doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah. And they have 5 games left the rest of the season. All of them are against quad 1 teams.
Yep.
I mean, technically, yes, if they lose out, they end up with 7 losses. They're not going to end up being
We'll
number
say
1, but yeah.
realistic. They
Yeah,
could probably even
exactly.
go 2-3 in that
Uh-huh.
arrangement. And maybe, and this is a hard maybe, Florida could potentially sneak in. But then
That's it. Yeah.
I still think Florida would have to win the SEC tournament.
Yeah, I just there's no way Duke can put a better resume together, no matter what they do the rest of this way.
Yeah.
Like they just
Yeah.
can't get to what Auburn's done already.
So you
So
say that I did kind of originally think about just ranking out what my top 16 I think it will be.
yeah,
And I did have Florida at 2,
yeah,
even though Duke was kind of right there in front of them. I just don't think Duke's got anything in front of them to help them out. And
they don't.
Florida, Tennessee, and A&M have nothing but help.
Yeah,
I
the
still do think that Duke. I don't know if they want to be a top
yeah,
2 seed. Maybe they want to fall to be the best 2 seed after what we just talked about.
yeah. The one thing for Duke though is I think it lines up Auburn being the number 1 overall seed, being really good for the South, like because they'll put them in the South, and then Duke can get
East.
they'll be the East, and then they'll have like a better like match because then it'll be like Tennessee or somebody like that. That's not offensive. That's just what from a Duke fan I'm like hoping for is that yeah, maybe they get a better overall 2 seed that plays against them, but it's more of a defensive
Uh,
team.
see
But anyway,
now, well, now I'm thinking through this. Give me here. Would you move Tennessee to the East or to the Midwest?
well, I'm thinking Tennessee's not going to get a 1 seed, and I think they're going to fall.
Well,
I
I'm saying
just,
if they're the two
yeah,
seed. If
yeah,
I'm looking at what it is right now, if it was Tennessee, Texas
yeah.
A&M, Purdue, Houston, if Purdue's that far down, do you actually give Purdue the Midwest, or would you take Purdue and say, guess what? You're going to the East. Tennessee will stay in the Midwest because kind of is more beneficial to them. A&M gets the South. Houston goes to the West.
I think we're talking about the wrong Big Ten team at this point because I don't think
Probably.
Purdue has any shot at a 2 seed anymore. So I think,
Probably.
yeah. So I don't, I'm
Probably.
just like guessing here because I think it's going to be a lot of SEC in the top 8. So I'm thinking, what SEC team would I like to see if I'm Duke? It's either Tennessee or Texas A&M because they play the same style.
Okay.
So yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. So what did I? Yes, I agree. I agree. Auburn probably clinched it as the number 1 overseed.
Yeah.
All right. So Alabama lost 2 games against Auburn, Missouri. Obviously, 2 very tough games. Right now, did they play themselves out of a 1 seed, or do you still have them as one of the 1 seeds for you?
They were not a 1 seed right now
Okay.
in my exercise. I actually had them sliding down to the 7. And I
Oh,
think
okay.
it's because there's enough, again, thinking through what's going to play out. I think there's enough value in the teams that were behind them to sneak up because they had the 2 losses. If it
Yeah.
wasn't 2, because let's just think through this. Auburn, let's just say Duke, Florida, Tennessee instantly take those up. They're instantly going to slide down to the 2 right away. And if I think Houston's already better, they're going to slide up. So that moves Alabama down. I also think Wisconsin's got a shot here.
Yeah, I do. I think so too.
So
Yeah.
yes, I do have them off the one line as of right now, but they've not played their way out of it completely. They're just not there this week.
Yeah. So I'm sticking with Alabama as my last one seed, but I completely understand it. And the only reason I have them as my last one seed is because their strength of schedule is better than anybody else in the top. It'd be top 45 of the Ken Palm outside. No, they're the best strength of schedule in the
Yep.
top 45 at Ken Palm. So I have them there, and they have more quad one wins than Houston by three, and they have the same amount of quad one wins as Tennessee, but they have more quad two wins than Tennessee. So I'm sticking with them for now. But we all know that schedule is coming up for them. Like
Yep.
we know it's going to play out. So I still have them as my last number one seed. But what I've seen from the last two games is they don't have any. I know we already doubted their defense, but they have none. Like they don't have any defense at all.
No.
So a little
No.
scared about them sticking on that one line.
Yeah. Hey, I have a random question for you. Just came to mind. We told you guys it's gonna be a long podcast. With the SEC basically playing nothing but quad ones, where do you think the plus minus is in the loss column for teams like a Houston, an Iowa State, a Wisconsin, and Arizona that are not in the SEC? Like, how much better do they have to be for the committee to say, yep, they can be in front of an Alabama, a Tennessee, a Florida?
Yeah, I was definitely considering that earlier, and I think it needs to be like Houston. They're at four losses now. I think it has to be like a max they can get to six. I don't like if they want to get to like a top like the
Yep.
last one seed, an early two seed. I think they basically have to sit like Iowa State and uh, Houston at that 6-7 loss range because odds are they're going to lose one of the conference
Yep.
tournament. I think they can get up to seven at max to still get a two seed. I think if Houston wants to get a one seed, they can't lose more than six. So
Okay. So I was thinking in terms of if you are in the Big 12 or the Big 10, you have to be two losses better. So
yes,
in that
yeah,
instance, let's say Tennessee has seven losses, you have to only have five.
yeah, 100%
But if
agree.
you're in the Big East, I think you have to be three. So like
Yep,
St. John's can't lose the rest of the way out to sneak their way even into a two line at this
yeah,
point.
yeah,
Because I do think the quad wins are going to come into effect, but there is got to be a push pull here somewhere where eventually it's like I've played the schedule I had and I've won all my games. You can't
yeah,
hold that against me kind of thing.
yeah.
But I do think there is a gap there.
It's just like when you look at because they go so far off the net rankings. Like when you look at those, it's every single game is a quad one
Yeah.
game for them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to set this up for you and then go get my charger because my computer's on
Love it.
2%,
Love
everybody.
it.
So,
Hurry, go, go,
all right,
go.
Texas A&M loses at Mississippi State. What do you think of that loss for Texas A&M?
Okay. I've said this before. I don't hate the loss. If I remember correctly, I think I may even had Mississippi State as pegged for that game. Mississippi State is a quality basketball team. Their offense is a little bit edgy, not great, but they were a bad matchup for Texas A&M. They play quality defense. A&M has been skittish as all get. We'll talk about them later in the podcast. I don't think it's bad. Again, not great that you lost in general, but otherwise, I can live with it. I'm not going to penalize them as much. Like in Alabama losing twice, you drop down. A&M, you get the loss. You're going to probably move down two or three slots depending on what happens on Saturday with Houston, Iowa State. So I can live with it.
Yep. I didn't move them down either. They were underdogs in that game, so I actually moved Mississippi State up to a potential making it into the top 16. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not a bad loss for A&M. Just a little bit worried that that offense just still scares me a bit.
Yeah,
So.
no, I've said this before. I don't trust them with anything, but I also like I'll just go with them every time just for the sake of it. Come
Mhm.
tournament time, I don't trust them to win three games in a row. They're
Again, we're
just too
gonna make
skittish.
that wrong pick, just like you were
They're a
saying.
skittish deer in winter. I'm telling you what,
Yep.
like they're gonna hear a little rustle in the bushes and take off, and you better hope to God it's in the right direction.
Yep. Yeah. They gotta guess right. Yep. All right. Next one up is Purdue is in the absolute free fall. We already talked about them. They've lost
Yeah,
three games in a row. They've lost to just about all the good teams in the Big Ten, Wisconsin, Michigan State. Since we
yeah.
talked last, they also lost to Michigan before that. Where do you think they slot coming Saturday?
I actually think even though they lost, they have so far to fall that I think they stay. I will say this though. For one, apologies to all, especially you, Jay Hooks. I did pull you off the Michigan State line.
Yeah, I saw that
That's on
tweet.
me. Hand up. This is an accountability podcast. That loss meant so much more to me than every loss they've had all year. Michigan State, we've talked about, they are not an efficient basketball
No,
team. And
no.
Purdue, Matt Painter has made an entire culture around efficient basketball, and
Mhm.
they got outplayed from tip to buzzer. Was never close. Never close. They looked out of whack. The offense looked just throw up in your mouth. That game, I don't know if I trust them to get out of the first round at this point. They just looked anemic. It was gross. I didn't like it at all because I still don't think Michigan State's a good basketball team. Like that right there is that was the pivot point for me was that game, right? I couldn't it was disgusting. I can't even know. I'm
Yeah.
disgusted by
Yeah.
it.
So we did two podcasts last week. One on Monday, and we previewed the Michigan game. I said, and then you agreed that the big three were just playing outrageous, and they like you just had to go with them because they were rolling. Well, they lost to Michigan. The big three did not play great. Then, honestly, I was more concerned about what happened on Saturday than what happened on Tuesday against Michigan State. Because
Yeah.
when they played Wisconsin, one of Wisconsin's starters got kicked out for hitting somebody in the balls, even though it was a moving screen. They let Wisconsin shoot 82% from the field in the second half. 82% from the field. Like their defense has just gone away. And again, like, Michigan State's offense is nothing to brag about. It is so
Oh.
inefficient. There is nothing to like about it. And literally they just did the same thing over and over. It'd be a ball screen on the strong side, lob over to the weak side. He'd be the help side wouldn't be there because they were over defending the strong post guy.
Hmm.
Their defense is a disaster right now. And Lawyer is not aggressive. He's just not aggressive right now. So it's a two-man game. I am very worried. And we'll talk more about it when we talk about the games of the weekend, but this could get really concerning for Purdue because this was a season that was really shaping up to be really nice.
Hmm.
That after Sunday it could get a little bit ugly.
Yeah,
So
I don't want to go too deep into it again. Too much Purdue, but I know we have Purdue fans, so we might as well. I legitimately had to look to see if Foyer was playing because he was so invisible
uh-huh.
on the floor on Tuesday night. And even the more concerning part, even going beyond what you're just saying there, like the offense looked like they weren't running an offense.
Yeah.
Like every basket they got was some wacky rebound transition. Braden Smith drives the lane, creates a little bit of space, flashes the guy open, they get a layup. But even then, it was just like they have no
Mm,
shooters. They have no flow to the offense. There was no energy on either end of the basketball. I mean, Colvin goes down
yeah.
on a moving screen, by the way. But that is one thing that I've got annoyed with this entire year. I've not said a
Yeah.
lot about it.
Uh-huh.
When are they going to call a moving screen?
I know.
Holy shit.
I
But
know,
the
right?
crazier part is Braden Smith is supposed to be the captain of that team. He's been a little hard-nosed guy. That's why people love him.
Yeah.
You see your freshman guard get absolutely clobbered. I know
Mm,
it wasn't malicious, but either way, you've got to do something. You're getting your ass beat right now. You see
mm,
your guy go down. You're already thin on offense. Do something.
yeah.
Do something. It
Yeah.
was just, it was a poor effort to say the least. And
And
yeah,
yeah. I think I mentioned it at either one of the last podcasts last week. I didn't think anybody could figure out how to defend that high ball screen. Well, it's very obvious. Good coaches to figured it out. And I
yeah,
just didn't look into it that their last, I think it was they were 8-4, and they got to 19-5. So that would be 11-1 in those games for the last three. The only good team they played was Michigan, and that was at home. They blew them out.
yep.
Everybody else was outside the top 34 in Ken Palm. Their last three games are in the top 20 of Ken Palm. And the coaches have absolutely figured out how to at least eliminate one of the big three. And what they're doing is just immediately high ball screen, double team Braden Smith. Like they're just like taking it away so that he can't come off there and make plays. Like, yeah, he'll make some, he'll get his 20 points, but they're making it a lot harder on him. And I guess I just didn't realize it was coming against weaker teams. And I probably should have since we did this podcast.
Sorry, we're blind to it.
Yeah. All right, next up, Kentucky loses to Texas over the weekend. We've talked about them. I mentioned how they have like the second most quad one wins tied with a decent amount of teams. What do you feel on Kentucky? You have faith in them? Still kind of weary about them? Not really sure how to feel, in my opinion, honestly, about Kentucky.
I kind of think Kentucky is going to be like a weird dark horse pick and have a lot of people to win the title because
Yeah.
they have the talent to. They just we lose these weird games. I feel like Pope's actually a decent enough coach to get him locked in for the tournament.
Yeah.
So I really don't care where they fall. I mean, historically, statistically, you don't want to fall outside the top three.
Yeah.
But a four seed's never won, and a five seed, I think, rarely makes it to the final four. So they need to
Yeah.
stick around that three seed line, but I'm not overly concerned, honestly.
Yeah, and I still just remember that game against Duke where they completely outclassed them in every way. So that's kind of like always stuck back in
Yeah.
my mind. So,
Yeah.
all right, next up we got Wisconsin on a roll. You mentioned them earlier, 5 in a row. They would just beat Purdue at Purdue. They beat Illinois at home. Are they the favorites for you to win the Big Ten?
They have to be because they didn't beat those teams. They dismantled them. They put up
Uh-huh.
95 points. I think it was on Illinois. Is that right?
Hmm.
That was just. When have you ever heard of a Wisconsin team scoring
Yeah,
95 points?
their offense is insane. Like for
Like,
Wisconsin.
like they played Illinois style of basketball and beat the shit out of them doing it.
Hmm.
Absolutely,
Yep.
Wisconsin has to be the favorite.
Yep, I completely agree. They're up to seventh in the Ken Pom right now. They're the sixth most efficient team in all of American offense. When have we ever said that? And they're not even slow. They're in the upper half of tempo
We
too.
we
So,
have always said this. A Wisconsin team that learns how to score the basketball is going to be a scary one. By God,
mhm.
we found a scary one.
Yep,
We have found a
yeah,
scare. I don't even know
yep.
what to think of them now because they have come kind of out of nowhere and are just blowing teams out.
Well, and for those that haven't been watching, John Tanje, the transfer from I think was it Colorado? I It was one of those
Yeah.
teams on the
It was
West Coast.
Colorado.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is an outrageously good guard right now. He's literally probably going to make first team All American, and his only two big major schools that offered the transfer for him were Wisconsin and New Mexico, and New Mexico is Richard Pitino. So it's like he had some good coaches looking at him, just not the bigger coaches looking at him.
Yeah.
So. All right, Arizona loses to Houston before winning at Baylor on Monday. I think they're probably a four seed now. Are they the most dangerous four seed, or do you see another team be more dangerous than them right now in that four area?
I'm going to lean yes for now. I want to see what happens this weekend with a certain team we'll talk about later. And I
Okay.
might say they are just because if you look at the numbers, the other team tends to be a little more consistent, a little bit better on the metric side. I feel like they're someone that can be more dangerous in the tournament on the same seed line.
Yeah. So I agree. I think Arizona, and obviously everybody for the listen the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks said, so I'm on the Arizona bandwagon here. But I know come Saturday, Missouri's going to be a four seed, and I think they are just as dangerous. So those two teams, I already know they're going to put one of those two in the Duke region because that'll make great numbers, and that will
Yeah,
scare me when that happens.
absolutely.
All right, Texas Tech loses at TCU. That's your team. What do you think about
Disgusting, dude. Like I saw 7 and was like, that's a joke of a line.
them?
Should have known. Should have known. I even felt a little bit weird when I hit the button. TCU is a weird team, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just not ideal. I'll say
yeah.
that was not ideal.
Yeah, I mean Texas Tech every time they get on a roll. Yes, they won 7 in a row, lost to Arizona, won 2 in a row, lost to TCU, won 2 in a row, lost to Iowa State. It just seems like every time you believe in them to really get to one of the top lines, they just kind of, make you think again every once in a while.
Yeah, I don't know what to think, honestly.
Yeah. All right, I think we've talked about this team enough, but I'll
Yeah, I
just
don't
bring
know
it
who
up
they
for the
are
last
anyway, so they stink. Get
one.
them out of here. They're not worth talking
Yeah.
about.
Kansas lost 4-6, back-to-back road games. Their coach, Bill Self, says they need to get away from each other for a little bit. I think it's safe to say they're gone out of the top 16. And if you're doing a bracket right now, just forget about the name of Kansas.
Don't
So
even know who they are. However, I will say Bill Self, I've been on the Twitter sphere, dark side of the web. There's rumors, Bill Self. It's
I'm going.
Indiana.
I was about to say she had me going. Thought you.
I kind of don't hate the idea because he has been at Kansas forever. He doesn't really have any ties to Indiana though.
Yeah,
Like Roy Williams had ties to North Carolina when he left Kansas, but and the guy just won a national title 3 years ago.
yeah, and
Probably
he's
could have
got
won a
a
title the year before that with COVID. Like
and he
kind of
got
an
the
odd
lifetime
timing.
contract too.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of odd timing. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, if there's something in the background going on we don't know about, it makes sense. But otherwise, like that's just fishing
yeah.
for a line.
All right, one team we've already probably talked about this enough, but one team you expect to see in the top
Oh,
16
here
that
we
you
go.
didn't see last
Yeah, all
Saturday.
right. So my top 16 new team that'll come in is Missouri. Team that'll go out will be Kansas.
I have the exact same thing. I also put Michigan State in. I don't remember who I took out of it, but I had both Missouri and Michigan State making the top 16 that weren't in it last week.
All
So,
right, well, that's a hell of a segue because now we're moving into weekend picks.
uh-huh.
First game of the weekend,
Yep.
Friday.
Yeah.
Number 14, Michigan State at number 12, Michigan. I've been holding my tongue forever. I want to talk about
Okay.
Michigan State so bad.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Michigan State, they're terrible metrically. They're not good. They also have five straight games against five ranked opponents. If you think
Oh,
that they're
okay.
going to stay inside the top 16, I want to know what you're smoking, what you're eating, what you're drinking, because goddamn, it must be some good shit, because that ain't happening. There is
Yeah.
no way they can continue this run. If they come out of this thing above 500, I will be absolutely baffled. I will be shocked. And if they somehow finish with only six losses, I'll say, because they have five right now. I will put money on Michigan State to win the national title.
Okay, I
Stamp it right
like
here
it.
because I will not know what to believe anymore
Yeah.
if that happens
Yeah.
because that means they will go 4-1 down the stretch. Big game at home against Michigan. I think if Michigan wins this game, they're the most dangerous four seed above Arizona because they are metrically driven. They do have Dusty May at coach. I love him as a coach. Indiana should have got him. And I like Michigan in the way they're playing basketball. So yeah, Michigan's my pick, by the way, for Friday.
I think they basically win the Big Ten on Friday night. They're 12-0 at home. This will be a two-game lead in the conference. I think Michigan takes this one, and I wouldn't be shocked. Right now, Ken Palm says lay a point with them. I wouldn't be shocked if they win by a couple baskets, if not more. So I'm taking
Fair,
Michigan as well.
fair.
All right, Saturday. It's actually a later game. It's number 3 Duke versus Illinois at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Duke, obviously, and it's not just because they're playing better than Illinois right now, but Illinois is insanely injured and sick. They
yeah,
didn't even shake hands with Wisconsin. They've lost 7-12 right now. Ken Palm only has this as a 4-point game. I think Duke rolls here.
yeah. Illinois could not be trending in the worst direction at the wrong time ever. I still like them a lot. Don't get me wrong. I pegged them very early. I'm not getting off that horse because I got that horse at the cheapest possible price.
Yep. Hmm.
But yeah, Duke's going to win this game. It's
Yep.
Madison Square Garden. It's.
Yep. Second home for them. So
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know if this game's gonna be close. I
yeah.
really don't. Like this might be a blowout before it even gets started. And we did look this up actually last year. Duke at Madison Square Garden. We looked this stat up, I think, actually, at one point. Because we talked about they'd only lost like
Yeah.
three games there in the
Yeah.
last like 10 years.
Yeah,
It
it
was
is
something
literally the
ridiculous.
yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
I'll
remember
take
the
Duke.
stat, but yeah. All right, number 6 Tennessee at number 7 Texas A&M on Saturday. Who do you got here in this huge SEC battle?
I'm taking A&M because again, I have no idea what's gonna happen. I will take them
Okay.
there at home. Who knows what happens? Honestly, I think they're the better offensive team against you already pointed out, a team that plays basically the same style of basketball. So
So what I have down here, I probably will try not to bet too much money on this game. I'm going to take Tennessee just because their efficiency metrics, they're the kind of the same as A&M, but just a little bit better in all of
yeah.
both offense and defense. So I'll take Tennessee. But guys, if you're betting a lot of money on this, you guys have a lot more balls than I do.
Yeah.
So
I
this is,
actually am more curious about the over under in this game. I'm really curious where they put the line at.
what do you think? Give me a quick score on this one.
I think it should be around like 138 and a half, but I wouldn't be shocked if they make it like 145. And then I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell did I miss?
They have it at 133 right now on Ken
Again,
Pom.
I don't know what I'm missing here.
Yeah.
That's crazy low to me. I
Yeah.
almost want to take the
Uh-huh.
over if it's 133.
Yep. They have it a 1-point game at 133 overall.
That's crazy.
All right, another huge game. This one in the Big 12. Iowa State, number 8, Iowa State at number 5, Houston. I want to know why, whenever Kansas has dominated in the Big 12 in the past years, all ESPN will talk about is them. Houston is 14-1 in the conference. If Kansas was 14-1 in the conference, we would not get a segment through ESPN without hearing about them. Yet we don't hear
Yeah.
anything about Houston. They've lost one game since November 30th, and that was by 1 point at Texas Tech. I'm taking Houston here. I'm not messing with them until they prove me wrong.
Yep. You got it there, buddy. Houston all the way.
All right, Sunday, here we go. Number 13, Purdue at IU. It's either the best time to play your rival who sucks for Purdue, or it's the worst time ever, and you fall to a 4-game losing streak. No shot at conference title, dropping to 5th in the Big Ten. Who do you got against Purdue at IU?
I will take Purdue because I think the timing is just wrong for Indiana.
Hmm.
But at the same time, even last year when Indiana stunk and Purdue
Uh-huh.
was like a perennial favorite to win the title, that was a tough game at Indiana.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be a raucous crowd on Sunday.
100%.
I just Not feeling too good about it. I'll tell you that. I will take Purdue, but I don't feel good about it.
No, no, that's literally I said this is a toss up. I don't feel good either way. Honestly, IU they played 6 straight games against top 28 Ken Palm teams. They've only won one of them, but they all of them have been in single digits. They played Purdue insanely well at Purdue. Probably should
Yeah,
have won that game.
probably.
I think this is a complete toss up. I'm taking Purdue, but man, this could spiral a season if you lose this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the other picks, and I'll try to keep this fast, I just want to say, UConn, congratulations. Way to screw Villanova out of a win. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go back. They attempted 8 free throws in a matter of 60 seconds to tie the game up. That's BS.
Yes, it
Had
was
to get off my
complete.
chest. So.
Yes, yes. 100%. Okay, we got 2 minutes for other picks. Go. You got
All
any?
right. I'll give 4 really quickly, and then you can go. I have Kentucky, Alabama over. These teams combined for over 200 points last time they played. There's no way they're making a line that high, but they could definitely score that many points again. I have Vandy at home over Ole Miss. They need this win more than Ole Miss, I think, does. They're on the bubble. They get this. I think they're in automatically. So take Vandy at home. I'll take Creighton on Sunday versus Georgetown. I actually think the spread's going to be close because of what Georgetown just did to the Friars on Tuesday night as well. If it goes above 5.5, though, I'm probably going away from it. And then I've been really big on the East Coast teams going west for a long road trip. I'm doing the opposite in this case. USC plays Friday night against Maryland. No, Thursday night. Sorry, Thursday night. They already played them against Maryland. They play Rutgers on Sunday. I'm taking Rutgers to beat USC outright.
I love them. I like them. All right. I only have 2 picks here, guys. I'm going to take St. Mary's just because I'm so sick of them getting no credit at all. They're at Gonzaga on Saturday night. They're the better team, in my opinion. They're 14-1 their last 15 games, and they're going to get at least 5 points. Ken Palm has them losing by 7, so I will take St. Mary's and the points at Gonzaga. Last game they played, it was 62-58. There aren't going to be a lot of points, so take them with St. Mary's, who I think is the better team. And I'm also going to take Wake on the road against NC State. Ken Palm has them as just a 1-point favorite on the road at NC State. NC State, guys, they're not the team that we saw last year. They've given up. They're 1-10 in their last 11. They've been destroyed by double digits in 8 of those 11 games. The team is completely done. So I'll take Wake Forest, who's fighting for a bubble bid right now.
Yeah, literally, they played North Carolina, I think, on Tuesday night also. North Carolina was 15.5-point favorites. That's a rivalry game. And North Carolina, I think, by like 27.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. Yeah.
Gross.
All right, well, check us out on Twitter. He's at Mingo Made One. I'm at Kyle Cliffy. We'll be having picks all weekend. Jay Hooks, we haven't forgot about you. We'll be bringing you on very shortly. We'll be reaching out to you. So if you're listening, do not worry. We'll get you on the podcast. Best of luck this weekend in everyone's bets, and we'll talk to you next week.
Love you guys.